So if I look at the function 1 divided by x minus 1 and plus 4, I want to think about what that minus 1 and plus 4 are going to do. If we think about what it did in the past, an x minus 1 with the square roots or a cube root, the first of the chapter, this moved it to the right by 1 unit. Similar thing with the plus 4. This is going to be a vertical change. And in this case, it's going to move up 4 units. So we're going to take that original graph that we just did of 1 over x and shift it to the right 1 and up 4. Now, if we think about what we can shift with this graph, the most visual thing that we'd want to change is the asymptotes. They were originally at 0 and 0. Now, if I'm looking at where they would be now, I'm going to come to the right 1 and put in my vertical asymptote because that's moving to the right 1. And up 4, I'm going to put in my horizontal asymptote. So these now become the boundaries for my graph. Now, looking over here at the positive 1 on top, that's going to tell us that it's a positive rational function. So it's going to mirror or match the same function that we had originally, where we're in that upper right quadrant, and then the lower left quadrant, to resemble the same shape, it's just been shifted to the right and up. So that would be an example of how we could use transformations to help us graph a new function, just as we would any other type of function where we're shifting it horizontally or vertically with the negative 1 or the positive 4 in this case. Well, let's go ahead and try another one. So the next one I want to look at is y is equal to a negative 3 divided by x plus 4 and minus 2. So we've got several things going on with this function now. We have a negative out front, we have a 3 on the top, we have a plus 4 on the bottom, and we have a minus 2 out to the right. So let's start with what the negative does. If we think about what a negative has done to all the other functions that we've graphed, what it's done is reflected our graph over the x-axis. So this is going to be a reflection. So instead of being in that upper right and lower left quadrant, we'll see that it's opposite. So it'll be in that upper left and lower right. And we'll see that once we put it onto the graph. This positive 4 is going to shift us to the left 4. The negative 2 is going to shift us down 2. And then the positive 3 up here, all it's going to do is say that this graph is steeper than its original graph. So let's take this information and put it onto a graph. So we decided that we're going to the left 4 and down 2. So I'm going to mark off 4 to the left and then put in my vertical asymptote. I'm going to mark off 2 down and put in my horizontal asymptote. But then we talked about it being a reflection. So that negative out front is going to flip this graph so that instead of being in the upper right and lower left, it's now going to be in this upper left quadrant and the lower right quadrant, but still approaching both of those asymptotes. So as we get closer and closer to the asymptotes, we're going to approach that negative 4 value for the x and the negative 2 value for the y. So as we look at these transformations, we want to treat them just like any other function where the x plus or the x minus term is going to shift us either left or right. The positive or negative value out back is going to shift us up or down. And then that negative or positive value in front is either going to tell us it's like the original function, like it was before, or a reflected version of that, as in this case, where instead of being in that upper right and lower left, we're now in the upper left and lower right quadrants of our graph.